1. I am a cashier in a store a couple of towns away, and pass through a town with another of our stores on the way to and from work. To make it easier, I'll call my store Store A and the other store Store B. Both stores shut at 8 p.m., but there are people there after hours to tidy and prepare the store for the next day. None are cashiers. I have considered transferring to Store B as it is roughly half the distance, but have decided not to for several reasons, including the staff always looking miserable in there. It's thought of as being in a rough area, and the reason I am posting this. Just around the corner from Store B there is a supermarket with a fueling station, and I fill up there as they're usually cheaper and have a points and rewards thing. Over the road is a car dealership that sells some really nice cars. Think Ferrari, Lamborghini, Aston Martin, Porsche, etc. I usually get changed out of my uniform before I leave work if I'm planning on going anywhere on the way home, including getting fuel. One day I was on the closing shift, and it was my last shift before a week's holiday. I was driving up country for a few days, and I had planned on getting fuel on the way the next day so I didn't get changed. I don't know why, but I changed my mind and filled up on the way home. This was a mistake. I was stood there, putting fuel in my car and looking over at the nice cars for sale, when suddenly I hear a woman screaming,
"Hey, what the hell are you doing here?"
At first I thought it was just two people that have fallen out and are about to argue and fight. This was also a mistake. A woman gets out of the car at the next pump and comes over, grabs me, yanks me around to face her, and starts shouting at me. Being in uniform, I didn't want to escalate the situation, so I asked her to quieten down and tell me who she was and what she's shouting about. She acted like I was the least intelligent person to ever exist, and told me she was a manager in Store B, and shouts that I should be at work and that she's not paying me to lounge around like a moron, and she's going to dock my pay. I told her I am a cashier in Store A several times throughout the conversation. I was scheduled up until they shut, 15 to 20 minutes ago, meaning there's nothing for me to go back to do, and I wouldn't get paid if I did stay. She was having none of it. She demanded to have my name and employee number. I kind of gave up at this point, so asked her what sort of manager doesn't know their employees, feels like they can shout at people outside of work, whether they work for her or not, like me, in a built-up public place, and grab them in the way she did, and that she should leave me alone immediately. Otherwise, police and head office will be called, both of whom I am sure would love to hear about a manager assaulting staff from another store, nowhere near either store while both are in uniform, and they can see the evidence on the fueling station CCTV. She backed off a little, demanding I go to the office the following morning, even if I'm not working that day. I told her that as I'm now on holiday for the next week, if I have to go to her office, I expect to be reimbursed for the holiday time I'll be missing. She started screaming again, so I told her I finished, so we'll carry it on tomorrow, where I will get paid. Got in my car, told her to stand back so I don't run her toes over, and left. Paid pump. The following morning I phoned Store A and told them the situation, and told them she said I'd get the day of holiday back and paid, which she did mention, and as expected, they refused. I then phoned Store B. She didn't answer, but another manager did, and explained in detail what happened, and that I'm unable to attend, and told them I didn't want anything from it, except a guarantee it won't happen to anyone else. The day I went back to work, she came in and saw me working there. I asked if she believed I worked here now, and she went white as a ghost and left. My boss saw and told me she overheard the manager on the phone to head office explaining what had happened, and she asked why my name was being used so much. The manager explained what happened, and was told the lady was no longer going to have any authority anymore, if she was lucky to remain employed in any of our stores. She's still employed, but no longer a manager. 2. This happened about 6 years ago. It was a Tuesday night, I believe. The stores usually close at about 9 p.m. On this particular night, we did not have many people left in the store, and it was about 8:45 p.m. I get asked to count the number of customers in the store to make sure no one gets locked in before we leave. I walk a lap around the aisles, and lo and behold, no customers in the store, only staff. As I exit an aisle finishing my head count, I notice an older gentleman, OM for old man, at the service desk, receipt in hand and a frown on his face, conversing with the supervisor. It has to be about 5 minutes before we close at this point. As I'm walking back to the checkout I was on, the supervisor notices me, and asks me if I could quickly go price check an item for OM with him. You can guess what the query was about, being overcharged when the ticket said it was X amount, and how he wouldn't have bought the item if it wasn't on special in the first place. He saw the ticket himself, yada yada yada. I am right. You are wrong. Give me a refund or I will go big mad, blah blah blah. I agree to go with OM to the aisle to check the price of the thing he had been outrageously overcharged for. I grab the receipt, smile, and greet OM. And off we go on this noble quest to right this assault on his financial integrity. As I walk with OM to correct this absolute corporate mugging, he gives me a rather odd smile and begins to pick up the pace, passing me, and walking in front of me. Weird. Also rude. But it is almost home time, so whatever. I try to match his pace, but being rather insecure, I stay slightly behind him, as if my presence might offend him. I might as well had, because this next exchange is by far one of the rudest conversations I have had. I look at the receipt. I see, sir, this item was in the wrong spot. The label is actually for this item.
But it was right there.
Points at the wrong spot. I understand. But it was on the wrong place.
It was right there. It has to be the right item.
He began raising his voice at me and getting more and more upset with every iteration of my explanation that the ticket was for another item, and not the one he checked. Him, being the responsible man he is, explains, or rather yells at me, that I am mistaken, and that the item's placement determines the item's value. Once I collect myself and try to explain that he can have the other item and the price difference refunded, he interrupts me one more time.
It was right there.
Kicks the spot, rattling the shelves. Now, I was crouched, and my head was not very far away from where he had kicked. Before I could even awkwardly and shakily rebuttal with the same explanation, he raises his voice one more time.
You're a fucking idiot, OP!
OM then begins to aggressively walk. I didn't know that was a thing either at the time until I witnessed it, murmuring what must be voodoo curses upon the store, the brand, and myself. I try to catch up with him because I have the impression that he will claim he was right to the supervisor, getting his refund, and calling me inadequate, as any reasonable man would do. After all, $1.50 is $1.50. And he will not have his mortgage go unpaid because of our unprofessional manner. This man possessed incredible speed, probably fueled by the injustice bestowed upon him, because by the time I got out of the aisle, he was already at the counter getting his refund and the item. The supervisor did not even wait for my input, as it was already around 9:02 p.m. and we needed to close. I did not have the nerve to speak of what happened with the supervisor. I just wanted to go home. I did rant to other staff members about it. I made sure to remark on the irony of being called an idiot, when it appeared to me that simply reading a price ticket to see which product goes for that price is a feat that even a 7-year-old could accomplish. 3. So I don't know why, but for some reason it seems like every damn where I go, I get asked if I work there. For reference, I am a dress comfy type of person and I live in southern Florida. So on normal days when I'm just out doing whatever and not working, you can usually find me in capri, workout or yoga pants, and a t-shirt of some sort and flip-flops. Maybe it's because I keep my phone on a clip on my side since those kind of pants usually don't have pockets. Hell, I don't know. Most of the time when people ask, I smile and politely say, I'm sorry, no, and they apologize sheepishly and walk away. Except this lady. Cast, EW, entitled woman, EWH, entitled woman's husband, me. So I was out shopping at a thrift store because I like to go find things to buy and fix up, or use to make other things as a side gig for some extra money. I'm minding my own business, looking through clothing that I could use as fabric for a project, when this lady walks up to me. I should mention that this particular thrift store has another thrift store literally next door. There's just a fence that separates the two parking lots and buildings.
Excuse me, you.
I turn and look at her, questioningly, I'm sure. She's probably in her 60s or 70s, well-dressed, typical South Florida snowbird from the looks of it. Her husband is half following her, half looking at stuff along the way, as she's coming towards me.
Do you work here?
Before I can even answer.
Do you know, is today the all clothes are $1 day? That lady over there,
gesturing to nobody in particular,
said it was.
Actually, I don't work here, but this store doesn't do that. That's the store next door. I think they do have that going today because it's whatever day of the week it was, but I haven't been over there yet. She doesn't even acknowledge that I've spoken to her. No thank you, sorry for bothering you, nothing, and walks away. I let it go, no big deal. I just answered her question, whatever. Well, that should have been the end of it. And aside from being a bit irritating that she couldn't be bothered to acknowledge that I'd spoken to her, or anything else, again, no big deal. About 15 minutes later, her husband walks over to where she's at about 3 racks away from me, still looking through clothes.
What in the hell, EW? What in the Sam hell are you looking at with those clothes?
I see that she has a cart literally overflowing with clothing items.
What? They're only $1. That girl that works here just told me that.
She points at me.
Like hell she did. You must be deaf. That girl told you that the dollar clothes were next door. I was standing right here when she said it. You don't do that here.
Well, she's the one that said they were. I don't want all this stuff for regular price.
She pushes her cart pretty hard at me.
Since you told me they were $1 and they're not, you can put them all back.
I didn't, and I still don't work here. I told you that as well when you clearly weren't listening. She turned on her heel and stomped out. Her husband just kind of looked at me like WTF before I could see his expression turn to anger, and he quickly went after her. She didn't come back in, but I did see them outside in the parking lot. When he went out after her, she looked like she was getting a pretty good earful from him. I felt bad, and asked the lady that did work there if she wanted help putting the stuff up. Her response? No, you don't work here. We laughed a bit as she rang me out, and I went on my way. But seriously, where are these people raised to think that behavior like that is acceptable? I really want to know. 4. I work at a thrift shop. Most items are priced based on quantity and condition. However, we do have set prices for some items. One such item is Monster High dolls. We get them pretty often, so the general rule is that each doll goes out for $5. If it's in bad shape or missing bits, it's $4. If it's clothed with accessories, it's $6. It's always been this way, and this is a standard across all of our locations. I've had customers ask why these dolls are more expensive than our Barbies or other dolls out there, and I usually explain that Monster High dolls offer articulated joints and are popular for customizing and sculpting off of. When we get into a conversation about it, usually the customer will understand why the dolls are on the pricier side. Well, not this lady. This lady brought up about 10 dolls to the register and immediately asked my cashier for a manager, myself. She asks why the dolls are expensive. I explain why and assume she'll understand, but no. She instead insists that the other stores sell these dolls for $3, and she even found one in the package with all those extra accessories for only $8. I told her that unfortunately, without some proof, I wouldn't be able to honor such a reduced price, but did offer her $5 for a couple of her $6 picks due to minor imperfections. But that was 2 or so weeks ago, and I assumed that was the end of it. But I was so wrong. This lady came back about a week ago and told me she was so glad she could catch me again because she has something to show me. I got a little excited because I thought she was going to show me her collection or a doll she had customized. She brought all my expectations down when I saw she was showing me pictures of Monster High dolls from other locations, sure enough, priced at $3 across the board. I was so surprised I just stared. She put on a smug face and told me,
See? Your dolls are maybe just a little overpriced.
And with how snotty her voice was, it took everything in me to be civil when I told her that I would speak to the store manager to clarify whether our prices were right, or the other location's prices. She walked away thinking she'd won, and I walked away kind of defeated. The next day, when the store manager was in, I asked him if we had a set price for Monster High dolls. He told me yes. And together we reviewed the pricing standard for dolls. We even went out onto the sales floor to make sure we really were on track with our pricing. Seeing as we have never had to recycle a single Monster High doll for not selling, we decided we did not need to lower these prices. Now just today the store manager approached me when I started my shift, grinning ear to ear. He had a story to tell me. Apparently, This lady had gone to the other location within our city and complained and moaned about our horribly overpriced dolls to the cashier, who brought the manager over to share the conversation. She told them that they should talk to the other store and see about lowering our prices a notch. And so the manager did what any good manager ought to do. She followed up and reviewed the pricing standard for these toys and dolls. To her horror, she saw that their store was in the wrong. They were practically giving these dolls away, and the pricing standard wasn't even posted at the tables, so the pricers had no idea they were pricing things incorrectly. She emailed our store manager immediately with her findings and asked us for our thoughts. My manager told her that he and his team had encountered the lady as well, and recommended reviewing the standards with her team so that they could price correctly. Then he CC'd the email to the district manager, who later in the night rolled out an email about following pricing standards more thoroughly across all departments to prevent customers like her from undermining us like that again. So basically this lady completely destroyed a really good deal for herself by raising a stink about the overpriced dolls at the other store. She's gonna be in for a nasty surprise when she next visits and finds the dolls are appropriately priced. 5. Background. I worked at a retail store that sold mainly very expensive clothes. I worked specifically in the loss prevention department, and because of the merchandise we sold, our company was very lenient in the policies regarding how we apprehended shoplifters. On this day, it was shortly after Christmas, and all three of us were working that day. My two partners were on the floor doing some cabling on our more expensive merchandise, while I was on the cameras. Our biggest hits came out of the men's department, especially since it was closest to the outside door. While I'm watching, I noticed three guys come in with hoodies on and the hoods pulled up, and they are walking fast. I also notice that they have two massive shopping bags. As I'm watching them, I notice one look around while the two with the bags go towards our denim table. I immediately start calling up my team on the radio. Right as I'm describing them, I see the two guys clearing the table of our denim. They are taking stacks of clothes. I'm already running out the back door and my partners are waiting in nearby departments watching them. Then they start borderline running for the door. As soon as they hit the door, bam! I make my approach, but knowing they were gonna run because of how fast they were walking, I knew they were trying to get in and out quick without getting caught. I was more aggressive and tried to make contact. Once they realized what was happening, all three split up and took off. My two partners burst through the door and we all pick one and start chasing. We told the nearby sales associate to secure the merchandise. We are all sprinting around the parking lot and the other stores trying to catch them. I finally notice mine starts to tire out halfway through the parking lot. I'm finally able to tackle them and start tussling. All of a sudden, I feel two arms grab me by the shirt and throw me off. I land and realize that it's one of the suspects. Before I knew it, one of my partners tackles the guy that threw me off. At that point, the one I tackle starts swinging and we start exchanging punches in the middle of the parking lot. We still have no idea where the third suspect and our partner are. After an exchange of curse words and fisticuffs, out of nowhere police start pulling up and tased one of the suspects. We were able to get everyone in handcuffs and started walking them back to the store. Once we get them back to the store and in our office, we notice that our third partner and the third suspect were sitting in the office already, processing the paperwork. We asked him what the hell happened, and he said after about 100 yards the guy just gave up and walked back. I just remember thinking, you lucky SOB. Once we counted up all the merchandise, it was about $3,500. We called our boss to tell her what happened, and she just told us good job, and she ended up taking us out to dinner that month. Needless to say, I stayed at that job almost another year before the rules started changing, and our times of being cowboys were over. Still one of the best gigs I've ever had. Hey everybody, Hellfreezer here, and thank you very much for listening to Adventures in Fast Food and Retail, number 85. And thank you very much to everybody who allowed me to use their stories in this video. Okay, I think I'm slightly back on track. I should hopefully be done earlier than usual tonight. Sometimes you just need to give yourself a kick in the bum to get moving is what you need. I might even have time to go crazy and cook a proper dinner. Imagine the possibilities. Still, no one to blame but myself. I need to be better organized and I'm working on that. Right, where are we now? Thursday this will go up. I'm going to get some feelers out because I'd like to do a hotel next week. Possibly a revenge. So I'll get some feelers out for those stories and see what we can come up with. And I think we'll wrap up there for now. So until next time, thank you very much for listening, and take very good care of yourselves.